upon second Crash Bandicoot. This isn't the first time that I looked at the Crash franchise on this channel, but it's the first time I'm dedicating an entire marathon to the Orange Marsupial. I talked about the first 3 games of Spyro, Jak, Ratchet, and Sly before on this channel, but one can say without Crash's success in the mid to late 90s, none of those franchises that people love to this very day may not even exist. The main reason why it took me so long to talk about Crash in the first place is mainly because, like, everyone else talked about these 3 games and Crash and Racing so much, so I didn't really have anything else to add if I'm being real here. But ever since I made that poll for my Sonic Heroes video from almost 2 years ago, Crash still got second place for the next marathon that you guys wanted me to talk about, so I just decided, fuck, let's try to talk about these games anyway. And just to clear things up, I'm going to be talking about the original PS1 games and a couple of spin-offs, and if I'm not burned out after talking about these games and the Dragon Ball games, I'll see if I can throw Crash Team Rumble in there too. But with all that being said, let's talk about Crash Bandicoot. Alright, so in case you guys are wondering, I'm recording this video right like the day after. I just got my hair like freshly braided, so that's why I look different for this video. So I don't know, maybe in the next video or maybe in the Crash 2 video, I'll probably have them taken out and I'll probably go back to my normal selfhood. Yeah. So Crash, we all know who he is. It's very likely that you know who he is if you clicked on this video. He was pretty much the main mascot for the original PlayStation and pretty much put up-and-coming developer Naughty Dog on the map. I'm sure now Naughty Dog's known for critically acclaimed games like Jak and Daxter, Uncharted, and The Last of Us. But before all that, they only made games like Way of the Warrior and Rings of Power, which nobody really knew about. But when Naughty Dog caught wind of Sony's new PlayStation and saw this new 3D genre was popping off at the time, they decided that maybe they should take a shot at making a 3D game, but they weren't sure what they wanted it to be though. Should it be a 3D fighting game or a 3D racing game? But after realizing there's not a lot of 3D platforming games, this was before Super Mario 64, and they're already pretty fascinating, the pre-rendered graphics from the Donkey Kong Country series, and they just thought that, hey, we love platforming games, there's not a lot of 3D platformers out there, so why not make a 3D platforming game? And then Crash Bandicoot was born. Well, he wasn't really a Bandicoot at first when they were designing him. He was originally called Willy the Wombat, but decided to scrap it because they thought it sounded too dorky. That because there was a game on the Sega Saturn that used the same name, and they just thought, oh shit, we need to think of something else. So then they came up with the idea of a Bandicoot. They actually had 3 animals to choose from: a wombat, a bandicoot, and a potteroo, which actually became the basis for Pinstripe. I just wanted to express the idea of having Crash being like an interactive Warner Bros. Character without having all these big and expressive animations, like looking just straight out of a Looney Tunes short. For Cortex, they just kind of want to have an evil genius with a giant head, kind of like Brain from Piggy and the Brain, and they immediately thought of the name Dr. Neo Cortex, who was also dressed as a Nazi for some reason. I mean, okay, I don't really know how to feel about that. And then we have Crash's kinda girlfriend, Tana Bandicoot. She was just added into the game because Crash didn't really have a reason to take down Cortex. These motherfuckers took all the time and research to make all these backstories for both Crash and Cortex. And when they're just making Tana, they just said, fuck, let's just add a female character with big tits in there and just not have her be in the mainline game for the next 24 years. Crash Boom Bang doesn't count. It doesn't. It's not a mainline game. Fuck you. But now we got our main characters, Crash, Cortex, and Tana. The game will be shown at E3 1996 at Sony's booth, which replaced Twisted Metal, and will garner a lot of positive reception from the people there. With a pretty good marketing, making fun of Nintendo, and apparently there was going to be another one with Sega, but it was never made because of budget restraints. I wonder what that would look like. Fun fact, there was actually going to be a little cartoon that was supposed to be like a little Easter egg, but when it was sent to Sony, they rejected it because they wanted to push the 3D agenda for the PlayStation. Anyway, Crash Bandicoot was released for the PlayStation on September 9th, 1996, and will become a commercial and critical success, selling over 7 million copies, making it one of the best-selling PlayStation games of all time. For a game that was developed in North America, Crash Bandicoot was actually pretty popular in Japan. That might have something to do with Naughty Dog's Japanese counterparts altering Crash's appearance to make it a little more cutesy for the Japanese market. And to their credit, it did work. They graded him to get that ugly-ass greatest hits label. I never got why people don't like the PS2 greatest hits label when it's honestly even worse on PS1. I guess the PS2 just had a nice, smooth, red color and not a blinding green. But the series did put Naughty Dog on the map, and so that's really what's important. But putting aside all the copies this game sold and shit, is this game a good start to the Crash Bandicoot brand, and it's just like a platforming game in general? Well, for any Crash runners out there, I don't think it would be surprising to know that the answer is both yes and no. Let's just talk about this game's graphics, because for this time, they're pretty good, and I think the environments are still pretty good even now. All the levels look lush and gorgeous for PS1 standards, and I even love how some level themes change as the game goes on. At first you go through a bunch of islands and jungles, but then you go inside a bunch of temples and bridges, and then finally go into a bunch of machines and labs and everything. It's sort of Donkey Kong Country in that way. This game does have a little bit of that old PS1 jank, like how when you activate a TNT box right next to a bunch of TNT crates, and if you travel too far away from the TNT crate, the active TNT box will blow up, but it won't destroy the boxes that were right next to each other. So when you activate a TNT crate, you better make sure you see that motherfucker explode. Stuff like this can happen too. I won't say anything about the character models. They're alright, but definitely don't look as good as they do in the sequels. I do love Crash's head turns though. He looks so suspicious every time he does it. It's like he's a pimp always looking out for the cops so he doesn't so his best hoe doesn't get arrested. I won't say anything about the soundtrack either because a lot of the songs in this game are pretty ambient without a memorable beat or rhythm. I mean, they go along with the levels pretty well, but I can't really remember any songs in this game to save my life unless it's the main theme, Hog Wild, or the ending song. But I do love the sound design in this game though. That ricochet noise that plays whenever you connect a hit with the enemy is so satisfying. Smashing a bunch of boxes. And the sound of getting a life is one of my favorite sounds in any video game ever. If you let the title screen play, you can see what the plot of this game is. Somewhere in the islands, a mad scientist named Dr. Neocortex and his lackey Nitrous Brio are testing out experiments on animals to take over the world, and it just so happens that Crash is up next to be made into a minion. The experiment fails and Crash escapes from the Cortex castle, but then they capture Crash's kind of but never really confirmed girlfriend, Tana, so now Crash has to travel through all the islands to save her, and that's pretty much it. I mean, it's a platforming game about an orange rat saving another orange rat from a Simpsons reject. I don't really expect it to have a intricate storyline. The gameplay is mostly like why people in the 90s were picking up this game to begin with, but you gotta remember, this game came out in 1996, a time where 3D platformers wasn't really an established genre yet, so being the first in a series during this time, it's gonna show its age. I think Crash controls pretty well, which is pretty important because this game came out before the DualShock came out for the PlayStation, and before analog movement was important for any game, so you're kinda stuck with the D-pad, but Crash's overall control is pretty good though. Unless you're emulating this game or playing the PS3 re-release, or you're playing on a controller that wasn't really made for this game, and also has like a half a second of input lag. I don't usually die from it, but Crash not jumping for no reason after I press a button is pretty annoying. Crash's basic move is alright. When you're running and jumping from one platform to another, it's fine, but when the platforms start to get small and narrow, or when you're bouncing on boxes over a chill of a bottomless pit, I usually get nervous because of Crash's overall control. When you're jumping, you can tell that Crash carries a lot of weight mid-air. Crash is one of those characters when you jump into them, you can feel the weight as you jump, to the point where you just go like, I also don't like his flip jump because of how slow it is, and it can end up fucking with my positioning if I jump too early or too late. It's like Crash slows down every time he jumps. That's really the best way I can explain the jumping in this game. His traction isn't that good either. Whenever you're spinning into boxes or near a bottomless pit, try to be careful because Crash likes to carry the forward momentum he gains after spinning, leading me to fall to my death because sometimes I'll take account of me sliding off the platform because of my spin. It doesn't take too long for this game to start getting difficult. Take Native Fortress as an example. This is the first level that really starts testing your sense of position and timing. There's these guys that bounce you back if you don't jump on top of them first. There's these fire things that need you to, where you need to time your jumps, and these spiky things that can kill you instantly, and it only gets harder from here on out. The double arrows can have you fighting depth perception because the camera isn't placed that well enough, so there'll be awkward camera angles. Then the stage is like Slippery Climb, which is just fuck you. Platforms move really fast, so you have to be careful on how you time your jumps. These slippery stairs, hence the name Slippery Climb, that disappear after a couple of seconds, where you can slide off of them if you're not careful. And these birds you need to bounce off too. This level is definitely one of the hardest in the franchise, but I feel like I played through the Insane Trilogy version of this game so many times that it kinda gave me a little bit of muscle memory. Because even going back to the original version of Crash 1, even some of the hardest stages like Slippery Climb and the lab are nearly as hard to play through, but it still doesn't stop my hands from sweating whenever I'm doing a tight platforming section. If anything, some parts are a lot easier here than they were in the Insane Trilogy. When Insane Trilogy first came out, everyone was talking on the bridge level for like Road to Nowhere and the High Road. The only reason why those stages are so hard was because of the control differences from the original to Insane. Crash flips and falls a lot faster than he did in the original, but sometimes that kind of messes up your position on some of these jumps because when it looks like you're about to make the jump, you either slip or fall or just fall through something, sending you right back to your last checkpoint. Since Crash falls a lot slower in the original, you don't have to worry about all that. The only reason why I would get so tense in these levels is because I remember how frustrating they were in the Insane Trilogy. When you get through the game, you'll get a bunch of lives, so it's kind of hard to get a game over in this game, but maybe that's not really fair to say that as someone who has like 5 years experience with this game. For new players, they might have a harder time keeping their lives, but as someone with experience, I got this, but because I just got this. But this game still managed to kick my ass every now and then, so yeah. Another source of this game's difficulty is how fragile Crash can be. Crash can only take one hit or else he dies. This game loves throwing enemies at you, so prepare to see this death animation a couple of times. Inside some boxes you can find Aku Aku, who I guess was just stuck inside for a while until Crash just smacked into it. Anyway, Aku Aku acts as an extra hit point. You can roll the 2 Aku hit points, you'll go into an invisibility state where enemies can't harm you, and you can't die from hazards, but you can still fall to the bottomless pits though. That little beat that plays every time you get 3 Aku Aku Masters will be one of my favorite tracks in the game, even though it only lasts for about like 30 seconds.
What have I got?
What's pretty cool about the Aqua Mask is that if you beat a stage and you have an Aqua Mask with you, it transfers over when you start the next stage. So you have 2 Aqua Masks saved from the last level. You can start with the next stage with 2 hit points already and go in the invincibility state once you get another Aqua Mask. A good chunk of this game is 2D and 3D platforming, but there's also some other level types where when you're getting chased by a giant boulder, which wouldn't surprise me if this was influenced by that one scene from Raiders of the Lost Ark. And these levels where you ride a hog, which Crash looks really excited to do for some reason. I mean, I don't know, just so bestiality if they're both animals and one's anthropomorphic and the other's just a regular animal. What, this is the type of shit I just think about when I'm just not playing through the game. So yeah, the gameplay in this game is pretty solid, and I hear a lot of people saying that they like Crash Bandicoot 1 the most out of the trilogy, since it's the only game in the trilogy that's just pure platforming. And yeah, I can understand that. Like, for the longest time, I just kind of saw Crash 1 as just something that set the basis for the franchise, but as a game in general, it just has too much first games in a row to start off as your first Crash game. But this playthrough made me appreciate the first Crash game on a level beyond just setting up the blueprints for the series. But there is still one aspect of this game that I just can't overlook no matter how much I like the main platforming. I think any of you Crash fans know what this is going.
So Crash Bandicoot has gems to collect, and to get those gems, you need to break every single box in the stage. But I don't think getting all the boxes in the level are that bad, but some levels like the lab, where you're at the time the opening and closing doors and the floors that just open up out of nowhere, and there's those like Sunset Vesta that just never seem to end. But I don't think all the gems in this game is too difficult. Here's the thing though, you can break all the boxes in the stage and get the gem, but if you die at any point in the level, all the boxes that you've broken are no longer broke. So now you have to go back to the start screen, press select, and go back to the world map, because if you die and break all the boxes and complete the stage, you will right back to the map screen and skipping the gem collecting sequence. This is the most bullshit part of the game for me, and the biggest reason why I can never go back to the original Crash Bandicoot for the longest time. I mean, since we have Crash 4 now, going for 100% in Crash 1 is pretty tame in comparison, but this game will test your patience if you decide to fully complete this game. You'll basically have to do a no death run on this game, whether you like it or not. And like I said, I don't find getting the gems a lot of these levels to be that difficult, but then there's the aforementioned stages like Slippery Climb and the lab, and there's other levels like Jaws of Darkness that have a crate that's harder to see because the camera doesn't pick up the crates that are above you, which will no doubt cause you to lose your shit when you find out that's the only box that you're missing. And Crash fans just have PTSD of just seeing this screen and saying like, oh hey man, you did great, that was a really good run, but you missed one box, so you should drink bleach. But I would be lying if I said it would never make me laugh how all the boxes that you missed just drop on Crash's head. It's even funnier than Insane Trilogy where Crash just fucking dies from all the boxes that are dropped from his head. Maybe that's what Crash did. He's clearly suffering from front 1 head trauma. Sim stage, you can't get all the boxes if you didn't collect all the color gems from levels like the Lost City, Generator Room, and Slippery Climb. And this can be perceived in 2 ways. 1, this is a good way to approach a level design, or 2, it's just a hopeless stack of decreasing game time because of a entire game going back and forth. Personally, I'm more of the former side of the argument because, yeah, you're playing through the same levels, but when you go onto the color gem routes, you go into a different part of levels and you're not playing the same stage over and over again. But then there's a level where you have to backtrack to get all the boxes in the stage, which doesn't sound too bad. But the thing is, the camera doesn't turn around when you turn around, and I guess I can understand that. But it's not the fact that the camera doesn't turn around when you face backwards, but it's the fact that the camera doesn't accommodate for knowing what's behind you. So you can potentially get hit by stage hazards or fall into a bottomless pit, all because you can see what's in front of you. And I know it isn't a limitation to the PS1, because the Boulder levels have the camera angles perfectly down, because they're pushed back far enough so you know what's coming ahead. Traveling backwards in a normal 3D level is never fun, and this is one of the main reasons why levels like Cortex Power are a serious flicking the nuts, because not only does the camera not show you what's ahead, but it's also the only level in this game that has branching routes, but not just branching routes, but branching routes on top of branching routes, so you have to backtrack multiple times in the stage. You wanna know what else is evil? Not being able to save the game at will. The only way you can save in this game is by collecting a gem, and if you don't have a memory card, you have to input this password code. I wish I could say that an early PlayStation game probably couldn't have you manually save, but I don't know. Games like Sonic 3 and Knuckles on the Genesis and Donkey Kong Country 2 on the Super NES had save systems, and Sonic 3 came out 2 whole years before Crash, and DKC 2 also came out a full year before this game too. Another way to save is collecting 3 Sonic tokens in a level to access a bonus level, and once you complete them, you can save your progress. Now, do you get anything for getting all the gems in this game? Well, yeah, you do. You do get a secret ending for fully completing the game, or you save your girlfriend, but even if you beat the game casually, you still save your girlfriend anyway after you beat Cortex, so I don't know, maybe it's supposed to be a good ending? Now the answer is a shrouded in mystery, but if I'm being honest here, there is some kind of satisfaction after seeing that 100% completion screen, because this was the first time I ever attempted to fully complete the original Crash Bandicoot, and technically it wasn't really legitimate since I did it on an emulator with save states to make it a little more comfortable for me, but I still feel validated. So over 25 years after its original release, Crash Bandicoot left its legacy on the PlayStation. While the game has shown its age, the platform is pretty fun, the game was pretty good too. It doesn't take too long to beat, even when going 100% for this playthrough. I'm beating close to 6 hours, so it's not that long of a game. Even though I found new appreciation for Crash 1 that I didn't have before, new players probably won't see it that way. It's one of the earliest 3D platformers out there, and it sure as hell feels like it. But I still think that the game is pretty good. I think that platforming enthusiasts can find some enjoyment out of the original Crash Bandicoot, but I feel like if you want to experience the first Crash Bandicoot, you should play through the Insane trilogy. In my opinion, I think that this is the definitive version of Crash 1. To start off, this version of this game has auto-saving, which automatically makes it a better version of the game. The controls are tweaked a lot, so platforming is a lot more comfortable. And probably the best part is that when you die in a level, you can still get the box gem. That doesn't really apply to the color gems, since you still have to do a no-death run to get those, but if you're asking me, that's a pretty fair compromise. Not to mention, this game looks amazing too. It's crazy to me how this game is about to be 7 years old in June, but these animations are still on well as a Pixar animated movie. Every character is animated in so much detail, and they make good use of the squash and stretch to make Naughty Dog's original plan, making Crash an interactive Warner Bros. Character. And even changes little details, how the original Cortex chases Crash out of the castle from the right, but Crash goes to the window from the left. Now Crash runs to the left and breaks the window to the left, and they even recreated his uh-oh line 1-to-1. And Sonic actually fights back instead of just like standing there with her mouth wide open for some reason, like a blow-up doll. So play this version of Crash 1 if you want to experience it. It's easy to get into and at a discounted price too, only $40. But Crash Bandicoot would become an overnight success, be one of the best-selling games on the PlayStation, and would compete with Mario and Sonic for a time. And while the game could feel a little bit dated at some points, it was still a good way to start off the legacy of Crash Bandicoot.
I thought Hulu knew they had something going on because 1 year later we got Crash Bandicoot 2, Cortex Strikes Back. But that's for later because next time we're going to be coming out to the Dragon Ball Z Marathon, the Dragon Ball Z Burst Limit, so I hope you guys look forward to that. But with all that being said, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you all next time. Peace.